And the icing on the cake was Dak following the Washington football team on Instagram. Raised eyebrow there. By the way, Washington has signed Taylor Hinkie to a 2-year deal. Stephen A., which team do you think should try to pry away Dak from the Cowboys?
I wouldn't mind seeing Dak in the nation's capital, not just because he's a damn good football player who's already performed in the NFC East, but he's also a high character guy. And when I look at what the Washington football team is doing, from Jason Wright being there to Martin Mayhew being your new GM, to Julie Donaldson in communications, what Daniel Snyder has done in terms of addressing the issues of diversity and things of that nature, I think that you've got a fixture at the quarterback position for many, many years to come. Obviously, somebody who'd be highly motivated to succeed based on what or how he's been treated in Dallas, not to mention the fact that, again, they were just in the playoffs, and I think they've got a defense approaching elite status. And so if you can sit up there and get a quarterback that's the fixture in the face of your franchise, and we know that Daniel Snyder would treat him as such, he's the anti-Jerry in that regard, because remember, he treated Robert Griffin III as the face of the franchise even before he deserved it. He was willing to give the same kind of treatment to Dwayne Haskins had he showed up and remembered to be a responsible human being instead of acting like a juvenile. If all of those things had happened in a positive fashion, those guys would have received the ultimate support of Daniel Snyder. It's the one thing that Dak Prescott is craving for, because Jerry Jones says all the right things, but when it comes time to inking a contract deal between him and Stephen Jones, it just seems something they're allergic to doing when it comes to Dak Prescott. They did it for Ezekiel Elliott. They did it for Jalen Smith. They did it for numerous others. But when it comes to Dak Prescott, your quarterback, who, by the way, was fresh off a 4,900-yard passing season with 30 touchdowns and just 11 interceptions coming into this season, when you got a new coach and he was balling lights out before he went down with his nasty, foot and ankle injury, you still are hesitant to take care of him. If Dak Prescott wants out, but he wants to be in a situation where it's about appreciation and building around him, think about Ron Rivera, the head coach, and what he's doing, along with the other pieces that I mentioned. It wouldn't be a bad place for him. I can tell you that.
My answer for this, it wouldn't be a bad place for him, or obviously not for Washington. But my answer, if you say the number one place, is the Patriots. And that's going to be my answer for any top quarterback. But I think especially it applies to Dak Prescott, and I'll tell you why. First, Dak Prescott thrived in America's so-called America's team. Stephen A., we've talked many times about the mediocrity, you bring it up religiously, of the Dallas Cowboys. And that's not supposed to represent America, mediocrity. But the Patriots have actually been America's team over the past 2 decades. And if you think that Dak Prescott has been good in the kind of carnival atmosphere of the Dallas Cowboys, and he's thrived there, what would he do with the professionalism of a Bill Belichick-coached team? That's number one. Number two, this is what's going, the question has been the greatest debate of the 21st century in sports. Is it Brady or Belichick? Brady 1, Belichick 0. Brady chose a great situation for himself, a loaded team, both sides of the ball, went there, but didn't just make the playoffs or win a playoff game, won the Super Bowl, year 1. Now, Belichick did a very nice coaching job. 7-9, with 9 defections off the team because of COVID before the season even started, some of his best defensive players. We all know they didn't have offensive weapons, and a rehabbing Cam Newton, who'd missed a year, in a completely different style quarterback to the one they're used to, steps in. Not only did they win 7 games, they had a slew of wins against excellent teams along the way to winning the 7 games. And don't forget, they were not only missing players because of COVID before the season, Cam himself got COVID and missed time, and they had to shut down the facility and couldn't practice together in that COVID year. So yes, I want to see what Belichick can do with a top quarterback. And when I think of Dak Prescott, I think of a lot of the qualities, even though the style's not the same exactly on the field, of Tom Brady. Chiefly among them, Tom Brady seems to elevate any group he's playing with. Dak does the same thing. You even hear things about how Dak can play with third stringers in practice and elevate everybody involved. He makes them believe they can win, and he makes good decisions. So Dak has some of those same qualities. And like Cam, he can run, but Cam didn't do a great job throwing the ball. And maybe he can't throw it like Tom Brady, but he can certainly throw it. I'd like to see what Belichick can do with him. I want to see what Dak can do with Belichick. I want to see what Belichick can do with Dak.
Your argument makes no sense, Max Kellerman. I would think that with me having a couple of days, thing interesting. Think about it this way, Max Kellerman. You just are a few days removed from talking about how Belichick lost, how Belichick, the GM, leaves a lot to be desired. You want Dak to go into that particular situation. You finally, I said it and you co-signed it. I would remind you. Number two, not only did you co-sign it, you highlighted some of the specifics, talking about him as a GM, the Garoppolo, the Jacoby Brissett's, the wide receivers that he didn't acquire, DK Metcalf, A.J. Brown, things of that nature. I brought up those names. You co-signed it. What I'm saying to you is that Belichick, you're talking about Belichick, the coach. You're talking about Belichick, the accomplished coach. I'm talking about Belichick, the GM, getting in the way of the productivity of Dak Prescott. I wouldn't wish that quarterback situation on anybody. And I'll bring up a point that I haven't brought up in quite a long time. I did bring it up once before, but I haven't brought it up in quite a long time, Max Kellerman. Are we not willing to get to a point now, particularly, and Molly would co-sign this, I believe, have we not gotten to a point now that Tom Brady has won his 7th championship? Who really wants to succeed Tom Brady in Foxborough? I mean, who really wants that task? Who wants that responsibility? Because no matter what you do, anything short of a championship is not going to measure up to those folks there as well as it shouldn't. I mean, they've been spoiled over the last 2 decades with the level of excellence that he's been able to put forth. Obviously in concert with Bill Belichick to some degree, but as we've learned, give Tom Brady some weapons and look at what he'll do. Bill Belichick didn't do that. That's problematic. And so when I look at it from that perspective, I say no, the Patriots does not make sense for me right now. Let Bill Belichick, the GM, not the coach, because he has nothing to prove as a coach, but let Bill Belichick, the GM, go out there and prove that what he can do is go about the business of surrounding the quarterback with the requisite weapons needed in order to be competitive, particularly with the Buffalo Bills on the come-up, the Miami Dolphins on the come-up, okay? I look at it from that perspective, and I say no way should Dak Prescott end up in New England.
First of all, I did not co-sign the fact that Bill Belichick can't do it as a GM. If I co-signed anything, it's that it does raise questions. He's an imperfect GM, and you have every right to highlight that and put the spotlight on it and scrutinize it. But I'm not sitting here saying Bill Belichick is the worst GM. A lot of GMs
didn't say that.
passed
We said
on a
what he
lot
has
of
not
receivers
done.
in a lot of recent drafts.
We just said what he hasn't done. We just highlighted what he hasn't done.
Bill Belichick's record as a GM actually looks very good. The question now becomes, was that Tom Brady? And I think to answer that question, he needs a quarterback. Now, have I ruled Cam out? No. But at this point, do I think Dak Prescott is an upgrade over Cam Newton? I certainly do. Of course I do. And furthermore, the idea of succeeding a legend, I don't think that would intimidate a guy like Dak, not Dak Prescott. Stephen A., I think like Didi Gregorius replaced Derek Jeter at shortstop in New York, and the fans loved him. He did great. He wasn't had the success that Jeter had, but he did great.
And
Dak is more than Didi. Yeah, I mean, but that's the kind of stuff Dak does. Dak, listen, think about this, Stephen A., and we've talked about this. During the anthem issue, did Dak Prescott toe the company line even though it looked uncomfortable for him at times?
Yes.
He did. Dak Prescott is very aware of being the face of a franchise, of his responsibility not only to the team on the field and the fans, but also to the franchise itself, even if maybe their wishes conflict with his. To me, he's sort of the perfect Patriot. And I would like to see what Belichick can do with a top quarterback not named Tom Brady, and I'd love to see what Dak can do on a professional team like the Patriots.
Well, Dak Prescott doesn't want to go someplace where he's just another player. And if there's an organization that's virtually guaranteed to treat you like you're just another player, it's the New England Patriots. Because if Bill Belichick doesn't want to, quote-unquote, kiss the ring, per se, of Tom Brady, he damn sure ain't going to do it for anybody else. Contractually, we know how many times Tom Brady has taken a pay cut, restructured his contract, et cetera, et cetera. Dak is trying to get paid. Dak is trying to say, I'm a leader of a franchise. I'm a face of a franchise. This is what I bring to the table. I deserve this amount of money, et cetera, et cetera. That ain't going to happen in New England. But Daniel Snyder will do it.
All right, I'll leave you with this. Dak's cap hit is $37.7 million this upcoming season, obviously, because he's playing under that franchise tag. And there's two ways to look at it, fellas. Are you replacing Tom Brady or are you replacing Cam Newton? And then the expectations might be
Ain't nobody
a bit
think about
different.
Cam Newton.
I got other quarterback news
Not there.
for you, though, coming